So objectives for today. First is when you leave here, I expect you to at least 2 or 3 good ideas to walk away from this room with. Okay? I'm going to tell you a lot of information, and I don't expect you to learn it all. What I might do is just send you these PowerPoints so you have something to review since you're not able to see it. I want you to be able to at least think about what you're eating right now, and once you put it down, when you wrote down all your food initially, did you start thinking about what you were actually eating? Did that make you take into consideration, actually? When I started teaching nutrition, the first thing I did was I did my own dietary analysis, because I figured if I'm making my students do it, I should see what it's like to have to do this thing for 3 days. And I realized, and this was years ago, but I didn't eat anything. I ate so many gummy bears, gummy worms. I wasn't even paying attention. I wasn't actually eating food. I was eating more candy. And that's me, a nutrition teacher. And so that made me think about. So when you put it on paper, what you can actually do is think about what your moods are. Why were you eating that? Were you bored? Were you hungry? And so that's another thing to think about as we move on in this little session today. I'm not going to go into high-level science. That's something you can do if you take a nutrition class, plus I would totally overwhelm you. But I still want to give you some facts, especially how nutrition is going to affect your performance, especially after today. And at the very end, any questions you may have, I already know some of them based on the questionnaire, but if there's any new ones that have come up since then, we can talk about that. So let's talk about daily diet, what you're doing every day. And there are 2 the most important meals that you can eat for the day. Your number 1 is, what's your best guess, your number 1 important meal? Breakfast. Right. And you have to make time to eat breakfast, because that will set the tone for the rest of the day for you. And eating Pop-Tarts does not count. Like, well, I had some crackers, so I had breakfast. Now, rowers are a little weird in a sense that you have practiced really early in the morning. So a lot of you probably don't want to eat really heavy. I didn't want to eat really heavy when my practice started. What time does your practice start? 6? 6? My practice started at 5:20. So I didn't want to eat anything, but you had to eat something. So then you have to kind of figure out what can you eat before practice, because you have to eat something before you go. Unless you're the typical person that you can eat a really heavy dinner every night around 6 o'clock before, you need to have something. And that can just be a few crackers. That's fine. You need to have some kind of carbohydrate before you go to practice every morning, because you cannot train on an empty tank, period. But then afterwards, you want to have something kind of hearty. So I noticed there's quite a few of you that had oatmeal for breakfast. Anybody here remember that? Oatmeal? So when you guys have oatmeal, is it the instant little pack? Is it the real stuff? Because I do instant. I'm totally lazy. So what would help, though, because what I saw across the board most of the time for this group is that a lot of you are below calorie requirements. And you may not even realize that. Because you're young and you're running around a lot, you think about it. If you drink a lot of coffee, that will suppress your appetite. So you don't even realize that you're not eating enough. So when you have oatmeal, for example, if you just chopped up a banana and put it in there, that's a great start. Have some yogurt with that, too. You really want to have a larger, healthier breakfast, because what they'll do will help regulate your blood sugar for the rest of the day. So if you have a good breakfast, and you don't want to eat all carbs. You want something that will last you, because carbs, your body can break them down pretty fast, even if it's a complex carb. Complex carb is like pasta, right? You guys familiar with that? So what that means is the way the chemical structure looks like, and imagine your enzymes are like little scissors in your stomach, and it takes a while to get all those little angles, because complex carbs are complex. Do you know what a simple sugar is? Fruit. What else is a simple sugar? Candy, cookies, right. Simple sugars are what they sound like. They're simple. And what that means is just like one little thing, and then your scissors can just cut it, your enzyme scissors just cut it, and that's it. You've digested it. It doesn't take that long. So that means if you have a lot of simple sugars, like, Cocoa Puffs or something for breakfast, you'll be hungry very shortly after that, especially for how active you guys are. So that's not enough, is the point that I'm saying. So if you regularly skip breakfast, what happens, and you regularly don't eat enough calories, what do you think that's going to do to your metabolism? It's going to slow it down, and that's the opposite of what you want. Because essentially when you slow down your metabolism, what that does is makes it harder for you to lose weight. You're not going to have as much energy too, because there's a mix of you who are trying to gain and lose weight. It's kind of a mixed group here. What do you think the second most important meal is? Dinner? Not dinner.
Lunch.
Not lunch. After
Brunch.
practice. Immediately. Brunch. It's awfully specific. It's not brunch. Maybe because you're hungry right now, that's kind of what you want. It's actually your post-workout meal. That is your most important meal as athletes. Do you guys know why it's your most important meal? It's your recovery. If you don't recover, you have not finished practice. And what that means is you need something, a lot of you are drinking like protein shakes after practice. That's fine if that's what you want to do. My recommendation is just find something that's 4-to-1 ratio. So like 4 parts protein, 1 part carbohydrate. And they work together and they help your muscles rebuild, because I don't know how many of you have taken anatomy and physiology, but essentially when you're working out, you're lifting weights or whatever that you're going to be doing, your muscles break down. This is perfectly normal. And then because you've kind of overwhelmed it, you're challenging the muscle. So the tissue breaks down and rebuilds so that you can overcome that same force that you did that day. That's building muscle. It can't do that if you don't give it the supplies to make your muscles bigger. Does that make sense? If you don't give it the equipment, if you don't give it the supplies to make more muscle protein, you won't be able to do that. So do you guys know when you should do that? How soon after practice? Within an hour. Preferably, I'd like you guys to do it within 30 minutes. The reason is I don't want you to forget about it. You have about a 45-minute to 1-hour window to get the food in your stomach, but I want you to just make it a part of practice. Put the boat back, put the oars back, go to your bag, and just grab whatever you have in there. And everyone has their own choice. Some people do the protein shakes, that's fine. To me, you don't have to do protein shakes, I just think they're expensive. And most of you are probably on a budget in school. Anybody know what the alternative is? Chocolate milk. Chocolate milk. Chocolate milk. Ew. Best. Chocolate milk is the best. They've actually done research on it. It's even better than some of the protein shakes. Just because the amount of protein and carb is so perfect and it's the cheapest way to go. Well, some of you can't do milk. I noticed that in the paperwork. You can do soy milk. It's not as good, but darn close enough. For those who just want to eat a sandwich, just eat a sandwich. That's fine. If you just want to have a meal, just do it right away. Just do something. Some people say, I'm not really hungry. I don't care. You have to eat something afterwards, because that's going to help their recovery. It's critical that you do that. So that would be your number 2 important. Yes.
Okay, when you say chocolate milk, should we buy the gallon of chocolate milk or mix it with chocolate syrup?
Right. You could do it that way.
Okay. Well,
usually what you want to do would be usually to bring the practice with you. They buy them like little sippy, the little straw, whatever that is, like
Nesquik?
Yeah, I mean, regular, you would get low-fat milk. I mean, you use okay. Might have more sugar in it. But ideally, if you have it in the little packets with you. So, okay. I know some of you do muscle milk. You may have heard of that. And one of the things to keep in mind is the milk industry is very upset about this stuff because it's not actual milk. That's a marketing thing. It's actually just this whole solution of things that appear as milk when you pour it out of the bottle. So keep that in mind too. It's still a protein shake. But if I had to, give you advice, I would tell you just go with the chocolate milk or the soy milk. Soy is the next best non-animal protein for you. Okay? That make sense? Did I drill that enough? And we'll talk about race day stuff. That's a little bit different. So how many meals should you be eating a day? Well, certainly not the short, that person was very short, right, the amount they're eating. About 4 to 6 meals a day. Now, these aren't big meals. These aren't dinner-sized meals. But essentially, every 2 to 3 hours, you should be eating something. Let it be a piece of fruit and some cheese, or Trader Joe's has little packs full of trail mix. They're individualized, so if you want to track your calories at all. Those are good things because you're athletes, so you have to be feeding. You have more muscle mass, and that you need to be always nourishing that, because when you have more muscle, you have more energy to burn, and that means you need to replace that. So depending on what you like, you can do 60 to 70% of your diet as carbs. That's mostly carbs. 20 to 30% of your diet protein, and 10 to 20% of fat. What I see in this group is there's some of you that are off the charts with protein, like high protein diet. And if that's what you like, if that's what you've grown up with, that's fine too. And there's some of you that are off the charts with carbohydrates. Okay. I can tell you, for rowers, a balanced diet is fine. You're not marathon runners, and what that means is you don't have to carb load as a rower. You don't do anything that lasts over an hour in general, okay? Because a true carb load, for example, I used to teach these students that they play softball on the weekends. If they had a big game the night before, they would eat a big pasta dinner. That was the big thing. They're like, oh, we're carb loading. That's not carb loading. That's just eating a lot of spaghetti. Because a true carb load takes about a week. You need to drain your stores, and you got to eat so much every day. But you don't have to do that because generally your races don't last that long, right? You may do some obscene erg workout, right? But you don't do that all the time, I hope, right? So you just have to eat a balanced meal. That's enough for you guys, and that would work perfect. So you don't have to go overboard in the protein or the carbs. Everything should be balanced the way I'm recommending. That is 60 to 70% for carbohydrates, 20 to 30% for protein. It's just what works for you again. And it's in your reports, the recommendations too. So if you had to pick some good food choices for carbohydrates, what are your guesses right now? Good carbs. Bread. Is that good? What kind of bread? Whole wheat bread's a little bit better. Whole grain. How about brown rice? Do you guys like brown rice? That's a good choice. White rice is okay, but you break it down really fast. So you want something that lasts. So this is a complex carbohydrate. It's something that you break down slower. And then your glucose levels, your blood sugar won't skyrocket. Because when your blood sugar skyrockets, what do you think happens to your hunger? You get hungry. You're always going to be hungry because you're always breaking it down. A common thing is sometimes people, when you're studying, you're sitting, you're getting hungry, sometimes you eat candy or chips or something just because you're it's like this vicious cycle. You can eat some simple sugar and you'll feel fine for a little while, then all of a sudden you're hungry again, so then you eat more candy, and then you're just eating all these extra calories, but you're not actually satiating your hunger. So it's important that we just eat a sandwich or something, or peanut butter, or these are good choices. Oatmeal was a good carbohydrate because that's complex. Baked potatoes are good. If that's what you want to bake a potato in the morning before practice, you can do that. Sweet potatoes are great too because they have better control over your blood sugar. Fruit. And I don't know if anybody actually peels their fruit. My parents would peel their fruit. I used to just eat an apple with the skin. So when you have both the skin and the fruit part, for example, with an apple or like a pear, the outside is two different types of fiber. The skin is the insoluble fiber, which helps you, poop better, and the inside is soluble fiber, and that helps digestion too. And of course, you're getting the sugar, the fruit sugar out of that. What are some good choices of protein? Eggs, perfect. Fish, nuts. Chicken. So chicken is great for B vitamins. Particularly B12 and B6 is something that female athletes are often deficient in. Also a good source for meat is a good choice too because of iron. There's a lot of iron deficiency in female athletes for a number of reasons, one being your menstrual period, and two, female athletes tend to eat a little less. And so in this room there are some women that are, according to their diet, they're not eating enough iron. That's completely expected. That's life. It happens to every woman at some point, not every, many women at some point in their life, just because you don't realize you have to regulate that. Am I telling you to go to the store and buy iron supplements? No. I'm telling you not to do that. That's something you want your doctor to tell you to do because you could hurt yourself with iron supplements. What I'd rather see you do, some of you are already taking multivitamins. I think that's great because the majority of you told me that you were irregular eaters. And so if all of you were eating perfect meals every single day, I'd say you don't need to take a multivitamin. You're getting all your vitamins. But most of you kind of eat some days, maybe a test comes out and you freak out and you just eat candy all day. So for you, I think having a multivitamin is a good idea because then you get the 100% of the iron that you need. Of course, if you eat a little bit better, red meat is the best place to get iron from. If there's any vegetarians or vegans, those individuals will have more trouble getting those minerals and vitamins into their diet, so supplements are probably good for them. Does anyone like lentils? No, I like them too. That's a good source of protein as well. Usually you want to mix them with rice or something, though, because they are, alone, they're not perfect, so you want to blend them with rice. Yeah.
Is basmati rice, is that okay?
Yeah, rice is good. Yeah, any rice is usually good. And of course, dairy products, as you know, because of the chocolate milk I just been pushing on you. So, do you guys know how much protein you need? Anybody have any best guesses? For non-athletic women, it would be about 0.8 grams of protein per body weight, per kilogram of body weight. For you guys, it's 1 gram because you're active. So it's about 25% more than someone who is sedentary. So you do need a little bit more protein. Generally, I tell athletes that don't eat any more protein because just because you live in the United States and everything that's handed to you is already too big, most of us get enough protein. Most of us get enough protein because the burgers are usually ginormous that you eat, or the steak. Do you know what a serving size of meat is? Yeah, like a deck of cards, right? So that's usually what I eat as I'm waiting for the rest of my dinner, right, to finish cooking. So usually, just because portion sizes are so large in general, most of us get enough protein. But look at your chart. I mean, I think for most of you, you were like a 200% protein requirement. So I wasn't concerned. Most of you, not all of you, had quite a bit of protein. And so the problem is that you can only digest so much. You can only use so much of that protein that you're eating. Eventually, either it's going to turn to fat or it's just not going to be used at all. Okay. Any questions so far? I'm just throwing all this stuff at you. Okay. The next thing is hydration. How often do you guys think about hydrating yourself? Just when you're thirsty, or do you know to just be drinking fluids all day? All day. That's good, and you should be. As this weather heats up, and it gets flippin' hot in Sacramento, because I'm from Philadelphia, so I'm used to, like, during the summer just being hugged by humidity most of the time. But here, you don't realize that you are losing. You're just sweating it out, which means if you're somebody who is a heavy sweater, when you work out, first it's great. You have fantastic temperature regulation, but you need to replace those fluids. It's critical. Because if you are, let's say if you're 200 pounds and you lose about 2% of your body weight, 196 pounds, go down to 196, that will severely, inhibit your performance. It makes a difference if you're hydrated or you're not hydrated, because that alters your energy metabolism. And so when you're sitting in the boat, you have the water reflecting the sun and the sun on you. That can dehydrate you even faster. So it's critical that you always have enough to drink water. Post-exercise, it might benefit you to have like an electrolyte solution. What do I mean by electrolyte solution? Gatorade. That's just a really fancy way to say Gatorade. So there's Gatorade, there's Propel, there's all sorts of stuff out there that you can get. If you want to do orange juice, that's fine. That might be kind of acidic and gross after a workout, though. So even chocolate milk is actually a good host for electrolyte. Because what happens when do you guys know what electrolytes are? Salt, potassium, chloride. Essentially, they have a little charge on them, these little molecules, and wherever they go, water will follow them. Right? So you can drink water by itself, and you'll hydrate slowly. But if you also have these electrolytes pushing them into your cells, you will hydrate that much faster. So that's a good time after practice, after like a in the hot sun practice. Then that'd be a great time to have a little bit of Gatorade too, if you don't want. Because sometimes people think it's too rich. So you just have to find the kind that you like. Let's see. You probably heard by the time you're thirsty, it's too late. I mean, it's not profoundly too late. I can tell you it's too late if you're sitting at the start and you're thirsty of a race. That's it's a little too late. You can take a swig of water to make yourself feel better, but at that point, you're already kind of in a dehydrated state. The good thing is that you're kind of young, so you can overcome that a little bit, because that's just what being young is all about. But as you age, you'll feel the difference. And I say age, I mean when you get later in your 20s, not like when you're 50 or something. So that's something that's really important that you pay attention to. So if you're fully hydrated And not that you feel the water sloshing around, because that would just make me want to yak. But if you have to just, you don't want to gulp it in. You want to start the day before. Just start drinking water. Just make sure you have it. And then the day of, as you get closer to, let's say if it's a race day, you want to probably cut off the water 15 minutes before, just the heavy drinking, and maybe just take a few sips before you get hands-on, and then go to your race. But this is definitely one of the most overlooked parts for athletes. They're so focused on the food. So, okay. Any questions on hydration? Really not too much to talk about, unless you want to get into the big science of it. So the one thing that was a big topic in my questionnaire was either weight gain or weight loss, and this ideal weight that everyone's looking for. I can tell you guys as athletes, I wouldn't follow the BMI charts to exact. Why would I tell you not to follow those body mass index charts? You guys, and for as the rowers, you have more muscle mass, so that's going to put you probably. You shouldn't all be obese. I mean, you're not like all 7 foot tall. But usually if it's the male athletes, they'd be more into the obese range. But for females, it's probably going to push you in the overweight. And I don't want you to focus on that. I don't even want you guys to focus on the numbers. Because when I teach athletes, I want you to focus on your performance and essentially how your clothes fit. Because when you start working out, the weight you're going to gain weight. Why are you have no choice. You're going to gain weight. Why is that going to happen?
Muscle.
You're getting muscle. And the muscle is where the weight is. So first thing, can I borrow you two? Come up here for a second. Don't worry, it's nothing embarrassing. Yeah, I need you to hold my top. So I need you to hold this. Hold that. So come around here. Have you guys seen these before? So what they are, each of those are 5 pounds. One is muscle and one is fat. So what do you guys think is the difference between the two, other than the obvious one being red and being yellow?
Shape.
The shape?
Like the toneness.
The tone. So both are 5 pounds, but you can see that the 5 pounds of fat just takes up more physical space, right? Mm-hmm. Does that look obvious to you? If you want to show them around too. So that's what I'm trying to show you, is that you may see the weight, the scale go up, but that's just because this is just more, it's just more solid. And so that's fine, that's normal. It's that 5 pounds of fat that makes you look bigger too. So essentially, when you're working out, I want you to see how your clothes fit. Are you gaining weight but your clothes still fit okay? That means you're just gaining muscle. If your clothes are getting tight and not in a good way, like especially around the waist, I know as an athlete and a female athlete, I have trouble finding jeans that would fit. Like I could go to certain stores and get like a size 14 or 16, and that thing's not going over my hips. I don't know who can wear those. But there's certain stores where a regular size that I'm supposed to be wearing will fit just right, and that's because you may need the legs to be cut a little wider because just the muscle tone. Okay, thank you. We'll put this here. You can do that too. Yeah, you guys can stare at it. It's just right. I know this one's a little gross and slimy. I don't know why. Okay. It's all rolling. Okay. So that's what I wanted you guys to, some of you had some concerns about that, and so I want to kind of reinforce the fact that muscle weighs more than, okay? There's somebody on the floor. I just knocked her socks off in my presentation. So that's one thing I want you guys to focus on, is performance. I want you to focus on getting your splits down. I want you to focus on getting faster, running farther. I don't want you to keep looking at that number, because if you follow the nutrition recommendations that are in your little packets, the weight should just come off naturally. Your body is biologically designed to shed the excess weight in order for you to perform. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. So, in theory, does anybody know how many calories are in a pound? 3,500 in theory. So, in theory, you would have to burn 3,500 calories to lose a pound of fat. So, there's 7 days a week, so how many calories a day would you have to not burn? 500. 500. So that's every day. So remember, usually I tell athletes, when you're actually in training, like racing, that's not really the time to lose weight because you're taking away all that food that you should be putting towards building muscle. So you're kind of doing some conflicting work there. You can try to do it very slowly and just cut out a couple hundred calories here or there for a slow weight loss. But I would say wait for the summer to do when you're not racing to do that. But that's up to you and up to your what you choose to do. At the opposite end, if you want to gain weight, what would you do? You would add 500 calories a day to bulk up, if that's what you want to do. You just have to do it the right way. Eat better protein. Don't just go to McDonald's and just stuff your face, because then you probably get heart disease and stuff like that. You don't want you to do that. So you want to do it the right way and to add the weight, and slowly. Each way, if you do it slowly, it's more likely to be sustained. You can follow, there's like a caveman diet everyone's talking about. There's all sorts of diets that I've heard of. And essentially, calories, the only way you're going to lose weight, you can follow any diet, it's just a restriction. That is, you just take in less calories than you're burning. That's all it is. And you could read any book, you can follow Atkins, or you can follow South Beach, or now the paleo diet. It's just a restriction, and however works for you, to me, just cut out certain things. I usually like to give especially when I was running too, you ever seen Nestea? It's like iced tea that you can buy already made. I love that stuff. And I'd come home from practice and just crack open that container and just chug it. I could drink a whole carton in a day. I was so thirsty. Because it's like a vicious thing. You're kind of thirsty, drink some, makes you more thirsty. I didn't care. Like chapstick, I'll just keep putting it on. I didn't care. And then I couldn't understand why I was gaining weight. Like some of you may have that problem. It's like, how am I gaining all this weight? And my pants are getting tight. And I was like, I will not buy a bigger size until I figure out what the problem is. Well, it turns out this Nestea, for 3/4 of a cup, was almost 200 calories. And I was slamming a carton down a day. And I was bulking up, evidently, without realizing it, in a way that I didn't want to bulk up because I wasn't exercising that much. And so once I cut that out, the weight came off, because that was my major source of calories. So I want you to realize that when you're drinking, beer, alcohol, I notice not too many people put alcohol down, so this is a really sober group, unless you just didn't want to put it down. Whatever, I don't judge. So think about sodas. All those are calories, and oftentimes people forget about that. Those are extra calories. And so one thing I realized too, when I cut out soda a long time ago, I drink it once in a while, but I was addicted to carbonation. No idea. I just I'd open one can and drink it, like a little bit, then just get rid of it. I just wanted that initial carbonation. So I drink a lot of bubbly water, and then I trick myself into soda. And so a lot of those calories are out of my life, and that's one way to do it. One of the things that I want to point out to, I know there's there's a handful of coxswains in here. I know it feels like that I'm talking just to the rowers, but I'm also talking to you guys in a sense. If you don't eat the right way, some of you, I think some of the coxswains, some of them didn't eat, they barely ate at all. And I don't know if that's if you're worried about, if you're a small person, you just won't eat a lot in general. There are some anomalies out there that can eat quite a bit. But if you don't eat well, that will affect your concentration. If you're not sleeping, that's going to affect your concentration. And you're in a position that you have to make some really strategic, last-minute, quick decisions. And so if you haven't slept, if you don't have all your iron, if you don't have all your B vitamins, that directly affects your concentration. And then if it's a tight race, that can mean the difference between making the right move to go over the line first versus just not being able to concentrate and feeling overwhelmed. So I want you to focus on what you're eating, and it's just as important. You're just a different type of athlete, but you're still an athlete. So it's important that exercising totally helps with your concentration. It totally helps just getting your mind focused. So I want you to, and I don't mean to keep leaving you out because I'm actually talking to all of you as a group. And so anyway, so that's my whole thing about that. Some of you, I mentioned some vitamins. Some of you were taking supplements. That's fine. One of the things about supplements, they are designed to add to an already well-balanced diet. I wouldn't recommend them to fill some kind of hole that you have missing, other than a multivitamin because you eat all irregularly. But I'd rather you eat more dairy products than take a calcium supplement at this point in your life. Because there's so much more to, say, fruit. There's so much more naturally that's a part of fruit than just trying to take, vitamin C from a pill, just trying to take them all. So they don't replace real food at all, supplements. And one of the issues too with the FDA, the Food and Drug Association, is that they're not regulated. And so there's no guarantee that what's on the label is actually in the supplement too. This is perfectly legal. All they have to do is put on the side of the label saying FDA has not approved any of these statements, and then they're cleared from any legal obligation. So that means there's no guarantee on the purity of the product. And for you being athletes, that's super important if you want to if you start playing with stuff like that, because you don't want to get in trouble with the NCAA guidelines. So, and also don't be fooled by pictures in the product or like there's Hydroxycut and you see people with abs. That doesn't come from a bottle, just so you know. Usually what those things are is that they're just full of some type of derivative of caffeine, and they just, you know, get your heart rate up and kind of get your metabolism up. That's not very healthy at all. And essentially, it's not really true. So let me see if I can be more. So one of the things for pre-competition. So when is your first race coming up? 2 weeks. So do you guys already have sort of your own plan that you're used to of what you eat before you race? Okay, and that's good. Most people, if you do, you know over time what will make you yak while you're erging. Like you know not to have a bowl of soup maybe before you do, you need to work what's best for you, and so that comes with practice. Practice, when you go to your practice in the morning, that's for you to train, but it's also for you to work out the kinks of your diet plan. You want to figure out at practice that eating this particular peanut butter and huge bagel is not ideal for you. You don't want to figure that out race day, okay? And so usually what I tell people, think of an upside-down pyramid in terms of what you're going to eat. The farther away from your time of your event, let's say 4 hours, you can eat the most food, right, or before that, because you have so much time to break it down. As you get closer, say 2 hours, you want to reduce the amount of food. 1 hour, even a smaller amount of food. 30 minutes, less. If you're just about to go, I would just take a swig of Gatorade and be done with it. You just want simple sugar, because that's where simple sugars are useful, because then you can just break it down and it won't hurt your stomach on the way in. Because some of the things that happen is, I don't know what your guys' background in digestion is. You ever heard of rest and digest? Okay. When you have food in your digestive tract kind of dilates out and gives you all this time to break down the food. But let's say you ever hear you go swimming? You can't go swimming. Okay, the reason it's not just swimming, you're just going to die, right? It has any activity. Because what happens when you exercise with food in your stomach, all the blood is going to rush away to the muscles that you're using, and it's going to clamp down on the food that's in your intestinal tract. And how do you think that's going to feel? It's going to hurt. That's your stomach ache right there, because you have this food in there. You can use something like peanut butter and like a piece of bread, like white bread, because the peanut butter, if you squish that, that's not going to really hurt unless you eat Bob's amount of peanut butter, which is kind of strange, and we probably should talk about that. But I mean, if you just have one little smear of peanut butter, so that's your protein to hold you over, and then your white bread, that would be a good pre-race food. Okay, something with a mix of protein. If you want to do chocolate milk before, that's fine too, but you might get sick of chocolate milk. So let's say your calorie target. So 4 hours before practice, you could do a big lunch, like a 1,200 calorie. Maybe that's too much for you guys. Maybe 600, 700 calorie lunch. And if it's 4 hours away from practice, but if you are 1 hour, so that's 300 calories. What's your guess on what's 300 calories 1 hour before? Fruits actually, it's only like 80 calories maybe, yeah. So maybe a protein bar, right? That's probably 220, 230 calories, and maybe you can have a little bit to drink. That's about 300 calories. A bag of trail mix is probably close to 300 calories, depending on how big the bag is. So again, if you're farther away, then you can have more. But the closer you get to your activity, the less you want to eat, because you're just going to get a horrible stomach ache. And that takes practice on your end, because I can't predict what's going to work for you until you try it. That's the weird thing about sports nutrition. And I remember when I was racing, I used to have one of my teammates, we'd be about to launch, and she'd be eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, like a big one. And I was like, we're going to get hands-on in like 3 minutes. She's like, whatever. It's like, I would want to throw up just looking at her. So, but that's what she could handle. I just had to have, I used to bring like Cheez-Its and Goldfish. That was my thing before, or maybe Oreo. But I was professional. That's advanced nutrition. I don't recommend that. So some fueling suggestions. So in the morning, if you exercise in the morning, which you normally do, You could, if you have like a smoothie, they still sell them in bottles now, unless you want like a roll up something in the morning. You could have a smoothie on the way to practice, and then after practice you could do a bagel and yogurt. So that would be perfect pre-fuel and then recovery. If you work out again around noon, you could do, which is normally say your lunchtime, you could start maybe half your sandwich before you go, a little while before you go, and then eat the rest of your lunch when you're done. If you do a late afternoon, you can have an energy bar and like a cup of coffee, and then of course afterwards your chocolate milk. And then if you work out just before dinner, then you can do like a bagel with peanut butter, and then just have a smaller dinner by that time. So these are just some ideas that would work for you. Again, you have to play with it. You also have to meet your calorie needs. Without meeting your calorie needs, you're going to have a hard time. The energy levels are going to fall. If you're deficient on iron, I think I mentioned this the first time, it makes a big difference if you are iron, full of iron versus deficient. You'll be completely winded after an erg workout if you're iron deficient, and then by the time you get fully up to your stores again, you might actually lower your split. It makes that big of a difference because iron is stuck to your red blood cells, and if you don't have iron on your red blood cells, they can't deliver oxygen to your muscles. If you don't have oxygen to your muscles, what's going to happen? Can you flex those muscles? That's how you get winded. I mean, that's the biochemistry part of it. So that's why it's important that you have the iron with your food too, in your overall. So we talked about a lot. We talked about your recovery, and you know that that's super important. And when you totally recover, nutrition's a part of it, but also you have to sleep. You have to rest between training sessions. That's super important. And the choices on your weekend. Would you guys think you eat differently on the weekends based on what you were? Most of us do. Most of us kind of chow down on the weekends. Right? That's okay. Some of you may drink. I'm not naming names. But that's okay. That's something you want to think about because, and I'm not going to really talk about it here, but for those who, if you drink a lot, it takes you a few days to actually recover from that because what your liver has to do in order to get it all cleared from your system. So keep that in mind. And so one of the last few things that I want to talk about is you have to set a goal for yourself. You do this with your training all the time. You want a lower split. But goal setting can be effective as any supplement that you take. And it's a vital part of your nutrition plan. And so you also want to be specific. You want to get more carbs in your diet. You want to get more protein in your diet. So you have to make these specific changes. You can't just say, oh, can you my protein? You actually have to do something towards that. And you give yourself a deadline to, if you want to gain weight or you lose weight, give yourself a deadline and a goal. Like in 1 month, I want to gain 5 pounds, or I want to lose 5 pounds. So that way you will adjust accordingly to get there. And write everything down. You already kind of did that with your diet projects. So keep writing stuff down. And then there are a lot of, you guys have iPhones or Androids? There's a lot of nutrition apps that are free. They won't be as detailed as what I just gave you, but it's good enough to get you to know if you're eating too much or too less. And that way you can make changes appropriately. Okay, so any questions? That's all I'm going to. Yes?
You talked about getting iron.
Yes.
What foods besides red meat can you get it from?
You can get iron from dark green leafy greens.
Broccoli's great.
What's that?
Broccoli's a great one.
Broccoli is good. So are you a vegetarian? You just
Yeah.
don't eat? Yeah, so you want to do dark green leafy greens are
So
good for you. Iron.
how much should I be,
The one thing about when you get iron from vegetables is that a lot of it binds very tightly. So if you just ate meat, for example, whatever you eat, you're going to get it. With vegetables, it's really bound tightly, like chemically. So you'll have to eat a lot more. So more serving sizes to get the amount of, so cups and cups full. Like, it sounds like a lot, but it's really not. I mean, you put tons of cups into a big salad, which is probably, you might eat a lot of that, or in pasta. So you're going to have to try to incorporate high iron types of foods, so lentils and dark leafy greens, spinach, stuff like that, into your meals. If you mix it with vitamin C, so strawberries, do you like strawberries? If you mix strawberries with dark green, so in your salad, the vitamin C will help rip the iron out of the food, and that'll help you absorb it a lot better. You might want to consider taking a multivitamin too, because that's probably the best way for you to get it. Next time you go see your doctor, ask them to check it. There's ways to check. You're severely deficient if your gums are getting very pale, if fatigued all the time, you might get cracks on the side of your mouth. That's when you know you're really deficient. So you know. Don't look at her, she's fine.
Would you suggest that if you're a vegetarian that you might want to get an iron test, though? Do you think that's a good idea?
If you feel that you might be deficient, if you feel, so even the next time you go to your doctor, you might want to ask them, say, hey, you know, I'm a vegetarian, I'm a little worried, I'm a female athlete, and they're already going to know, and it's no big deal, there's a test for it. But if you take a multivitamin, that's one level, but you're more likely to be iron deficient and B vitamin deficient if you're a vegetarian. Any other questions? Concerns? All right. Well, that's not so bad.